Hello, everyone. Today we have a very special guest with us, and Dr. Pramod. He is joining us from Oxford. And Pramod, I welcome you here in our gut microbiome page. And I would like to ask you about your introduction first and what you were doing about the career, and then we go for further discussion about the science you are doing in Oxford. So I would first like to invite you to introduce yourself so that
Yeah,
our so that the our audience come to know about your background, about your journey and other things.
yeah. So hi, Dylan. Thanks for having me. It's really wonderful to be here. Hi, everyone. So I'm researcher at Oxford, and I'm working in the area of antibiotic resistance in bacterial pathogens. So we try to understand how bacteria evolve resistance against antibiotics that we use in clinical practice. My background is I have been trained as a microbiologist in my undergraduate and graduate studies. So I did my PhD from Hungary, and my undergraduate education is from India. So that's my like brief introduction, I would say, from education point of view. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you, Pramod. Thank you for introducing yourself. And then we have a next question, which is what kind of things which inspired you to travel from India to abroad and then join your PhD program in Hungary, and what kind of how long it was, and how did you get that?
yeah. So I would say the honest answer to this question is my interest in research that I developed during my master degree. So it's true that when I started my masters, I was not 100% sure that I would go into research, and I think it's quite common in like with the students that they don't know if they really want to go in this direction, that direction, and it comes later on. And the same thing would happen with me that at the start in the masters, I was not sure. Then later on, I realized that I'm really interested in research, and so after finishing my master's degree, I started working in a research institute called IGIB in New Delhi in India. And then I was working on a research project that it was a really exciting project. And then I felt that I need to get more exposure and training outside. So I started applying abroad, um, and then I got, I think, a couple of acceptance from different universities, and then I started it in Hungary, where the lab was working on already on antimicrobial resistance field, and this was my field where I was really interested. So it was very specific, and I think it was like predetermined at where I want to go, which direction I want to go, and yeah, then I started my journey in abroad after joining my PhD in Hungary. Yeah,
So Pramod, it's really interesting. So when you said you were in masters, and that time you developed kind of interest to go for PhD, and before
yeah,
that, like you were in dilemma that you should go for PhD or not. So when you started to think about your PhD, that okay, now I decided that I'm going to join PhD and do the research. So what were the things they came in your mind to boost your CV to get a good post abroad? How you made your CV stronger? What was
yeah.
the skills which you developed after that? So
Hmm.
could you please tell us about that as well?
Yeah, I think so. In my views, there are quite a few things which are really important to get PhD and abroad, and I would say that like I feel it can be different from different people. They have different opinion, but in my view, I think it's really good to have like research training before starting the PhD,
I
because
agree.
then you can know what area you want to work on, and this training can be at your master level. It can be at your bachelor. When you're doing your bachelor degree, your master, you can do the training that time. It's not necessarily finishing master and then you do training. It's not like that. You can do it at any point, but that training helps you to know the area that that you really want to do research in, right? And also that helps you to know the potential research labs outside that you can go and work there. And I think getting PhD abroad is not that easy, especially in a good place. I know many people, and when I was also applying, I was like, I experienced that it's not that easy. It's really competitive to get a good position. So doing a training, research training, it helps you. And then it also, like, if you are doing a training at really good place, then you get publications, let's say, as an outcome of your research project, and that boosts your CV a lot. And I think that will make you, like, that will stand you out from the crowd, because people, and so many students apply for PhD abroad, right?
Yes.
And if you want to be like stand out from the crowd, then you have to show a very different CV, and that comes with your publications, experience, how did you perform in your project and things like that. So I think that was the key for me, that I did like a training there. I was working as a research fellow, which is a fellow in IGIB, and I think that helped me a lot.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
what I understood is first thing is laboratory experience, which you should get from India, from the country which you're coming from, and
yeah,
apply for PhD. So before PhD, you should have at least exposure to the labs and
yeah,
in the kind of similar field which you want to apply, right?
yeah. I think the most important thing is that you know what area you want to work, what is your interest, because sometimes we write application very randomly, right?
Yeah,
To
that's
any like student apply to different labs, and they can write like
mm-hmm.
hundreds of applications to the labs, but I'm not sure if that would be an effective approach. And I think to get a better outcome, you need to apply to specific place, and that comes when you know that yeah, I want to work in this area, right? And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's my interest. And also, I think when you exposed to a training program or research projects, then you can easily make a good like proposal,
Yes,
right? Like
you
a research
understand more about
proposal.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know about the field and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So that really, I think they're really helpful to get a PhD abroad.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that was the key for me. Yeah,
Yeah, also, what I felt is about the writing. When you write your application, yeah, like suppose you are writing your motivation letter, you are making a CV, that should
yeah,
be also kind of. I'm not so. I think you agree with me as well, because if you're writing skills and how you communicate your things to the other person, that is also
yeah,
important, right?
yeah. That's very true. Yeah, I would agree, because like, so because when you are applying for PhD, you're writing, you're sending something, so a document. You are not there in person, so you can't explain the things. You have to explain in your writing part, right? You have the document that you are sending over, so you have to be very good in writing, definitely, so that you can deliver the message to the lab or the people or the person you're applying for, that okay, I'm the this person. And yeah, so it needs like very effective writing, and very like the delivery of the message should be very clear. Yeah,
So okay, so we move on. So when once you joined your PhD, so what you felt that you learned a few things in the back in India, and you work in several laboratories. So you got some skills to work in the laboratory, right? So how useful they are, the things you are getting during your masters, during your bachelor, suppose from scientific trainings, from the laboratory experience,
yeah.
these things. So do you think they are really important for your pursuing your PhD? Or you think you learn few things, there are few people who are going to teach you in your PhD, and then you get the ability to do the work. So what do you think about these two aspects?
So yeah, I think so. We learn at every stage. We learn something. So, for example, at my master's, I learned something about like, okay, I'm interested in doing research. Then I started applying for research. Then I started working as a research fellow, and then I learned about my area. That okay, this is the area. And then, because when you start working, you know about the field, and you try to keep yourself updated what's going on in this field and things like that. So that kind of skills, that helps you, because then you start reading papers and searching papers and things like that. So it also like a very small thing, but it makes a difference, because like how to find a nice paper, and how you keep yourself updated, how much you read, things like that. So that skills develop during your, the starting of your research interest, and when you're doing a project. So these kind of things. And when I was when you start a PhD, for example, when I started my PhD in Hungary, it was really good training there. The research was really good. Um, I learned there how to be focused on my project, how you design your project, and so there are many things that really helps. So yeah, but I think the most important thing is that you have to be very focused on your project, because sometimes let's say we are involved in a big project, and then we get so much like data set and interesting findings, and then it's so easy to get distracted.
That's
Oh, this is really nice, this is really good finding, let's, and then we start following it, but maybe that was not the like a major aim, right? So we have to very focus that okay, I have to finish this task first, and then I will think about the secondary things later on, right? So you have to be very focused. um and yeah, how you manage your time and project and things like this. This comes with the training
yeah.
during your PhD, or yeah. So yeah,
Yeah, that's really true because you have a kind of limited time in your PhD, 4 years. If you intend your PhD, you feel like, oh, okay, I have 4 5 years to do my PhD and I can finish it. But when you get going, you reach like 1 year, 2 years, and you are in the middle of your like 2.5 year, 3 years. Then you realize how many problems you have. And if
yeah,
you focus from the beginning, you know your things, you know how to deal with the problems which you're going to face or which you are facing now, and don't divert your mind in other small things.
yeah, that's
Probably,
very true.
yeah, you can finish. And also I think then you have to be really organized. How you like what we are doing now, we were doing in the, especially in our lab, we were doing that. We were making a month back, like month before, we were making all the plans that what experiment we are going for the
Yeah,
doing for 1 month or next 2 months or 3 months. So that makes you like a kind of focused also, and then you know in your head that okay, these things I had to finish in this particular time.
yeah,
And
yeah. That helps you to be organized. So it's like you have well planned, experiments, and you plan everything in advance, which means that you don't waste your time, and then things are very organized. And I think that's a very effective approach to doing research. Yeah,
okay, so yeah, so next thing what I wanted to ask is, because I get so many people, so many requests from India that okay, you are working in abroad, you did your PhD in abroad, now you are doing postdoc.
yeah.
So can you please suggest me something how I can get the PhD in abroad? So sometimes it's really hard to tell exactly what you have to do, how what you
Hmm.
have to improve. We discussed before also, like few minutes back, these things. But what advice would you like to give? Because you are already have experience in Europe. Now you are working in the top university in the world. So what kind of advice you want to give to potential to coming students who are aspiring to get a PhD in abroad, or something like that?
Yeah. So I think there are many things, as I said earlier, but the important thing is that you have to find your niche, um, the area where you want to work, because that's the important thing when you apply for PhD in abroad. Because sometimes, let's say we get the application from a student who finished their masters or other training in India, and then they apply that okay, we want to do PhD in a research group, and we want to work on, let's say, antimicrobial resistance, but it's quite a broad term that they use. So I would say that students, it's really good to know what specific area you want to work on, and then once you know it, I think it's really important to propose a project. Like it, believe me, it doesn't matter if it's really a like a mind blowing project, or is it like it sounds stupid. It doesn't matter. You should come with something like a project that okay, this is my idea. This is what I want to work on, and I think that makes a really huge impact on the person who is reading or checking your application, that yeah, this guy is reading publications and then deciding and planning, that this is a project that I want to work on. So that helps a lot, and then it gives the impression that this guy is really serious, this person is really serious about the research. So that's why I would suggest that, yeah, whenever applying, even for PhD or postdoc, it's always good to find like a potential project based on the publications where you are going. Read the papers, like current 5 years papers, and then plan a project or something and propose the idea that, okay, this is what I want to work on. And I think that would help a lot in getting positive response from the labs.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
And I also, some people are like they are really hesitant to contact to the people. So in my opinion, people has to very come upfront and write immediately. I mean, if you see some post,
yeah,
write to the PI, write to the lab. I think then it helps to, so don't hesitate in communicating, I think, right?
yeah. And also, I would add one more thing here. So also, like, I think one should focus on the lab rather than focusing on country.
Yeah,
So
that's the good point.
it's yeah, it's like, because some people go behind the country that, okay, I want to go to this X country because it's advanced country, a very good country in terms of culture and things like that. Of course, these things are important. I'm not saying that it's not good, but the most important, because if you're really serious about research, and if you want to see yourself in this field, on a bigger picture, then I think the most important thing is that you decide based on the lab that, okay, this lab is doing good or not, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't matter in which country they are, which place they are, but are they working nicely? They are really good job. They're doing fantastic work there, right? If they are doing it, then just apply. Don't hesitate that, okay, this country is middle of nowhere or somewhere, or I don't know.
True, true.
Doesn't matter. So I think that's more important. The lab focused application rather than country focused.
Yeah. So there is a one more huge problem with us is funding, right? So
Yeah.
some people they ask me if I want to apply for PhD in abroad. So should we get the funding first, or should we send our application first? So in your opinion, I want to know your opinion about it, because it's really important for us to know about the funding agencies, how the science is funded, at what stage you can get the funding, right?
Yeah.
So for conferences, such as for the conferences for your PhD positions, for postdocs, there are different kind of
Yeah.
scholarships. So what do you feel like, how difficult these scholarships are to get? And do you think the people who are applying for PhD in abroad, they should
Hmm.
also consider to applying for the fellowships, for the scholarships, or they should directly contact to the post where lab is funding to the student?
Yeah. Well, so there are like I would say two ways to go. So one is that you have your own funding. That's really good. Um,
but
so
but
so the,
but
yeah,
that is difficult, right, to get to your own
yeah.
funding?
It is difficult. I mean, it's not that easy to get funding. It's definitely very competitive. Um, but I think it also depends on like which place you're working. I mean, applying, and from where you're applying, right? So like I think most of the universities, they have different programs for students. Like for students who are coming for PhD or master, they have like different programs. And I think, like for example, Oxford University offers, I think, a range of fundings through scholarships, research councils, and studentship, and that helps the students to do their research project or degree. And also, like, Oxford has many collaborations with different countries. So they put together some funding programs for the students. So, for example, from India, you have DBT, DST, or ICMR, such funding bodies, and then I think different universities abroad, they collaborate this kind of the program that they put together. So there are different. I think there are opportunities for fundings, but I don't think that this is the only way to get the PhD. I mean, of course, this is really, really good way, but I think students can also apply even if they don't have funding. They can apply for their like, I think like funding within the university or the research group if they have their own funding, so they can support the student. Because sometimes it happens that we think that, oh, I'm not getting this program because I don't have any funding, and maybe I'm not going to get the position. But I think it's not true. I think they should apply, and sometimes the lab has their own funding, so they can offer some money to, okay, you can take the salary or whatever required for the research. So I think it depends on the lab and the university. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, so there are kind of funding things, funding bodies are available. So if you are coming from the international environment, you have the international funding agencies which can support you.
Yeah.
And that also depends on which region from you're coming to your application is coming, right? So there
Yeah.
are some regional scholarships which you can apply, but for that you have to search, you have to do a kind of search on Google and find these scholarships by
Yeah.
yourself.
That yeah, definitely that needs the homework. So you
Yes.
have to find, okay, which so for example, if I apply from India, then I have to check the DBT website or DST or ICMR. Okay, they are, if they're offering some funding for me, or not. If I'm eligible for that or not. So yeah, you have to do your homework first and then go forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was nice to discuss about the career thing. So let's move on the scientific part of the this
Yeah.
talk. So I would like to know about your research because it's really interesting nowadays. This the kind of antimicrobial resistance is really getting really is kind of hot topic, right, in the science. So I'm just really curious to know about the what basic the antibiotic resistance is and why it is so in limelight. In limelight, people want to understand because bacteria they are getting resistance day by day, right? Because people are using more antibiotic and some other
Yeah.
kind of things which give them resistance against this, and this really fatal for humanity, right?
Yeah.
So itself. So I want to understand what kind of phenomena is this and how important this for society to consider it, to understand it more.
Yeah. So basically, so the antimicrobial resistance means that, so let's imagine that you treat a patient with an antibiotic. So the patient had an infection and then hospitalized, and then the doctor prescribed an antibiotic. Um, and what will happen that the bacteria will be exposed to that given antibiotic, and then bacteria will try to survive in these stress conditions. So what they will do, they will start changing their genetic or let's say genetic material, which is called DNA, we say, and do some kind of phenotypic changes as well. So basically, they will try to change themselves in a way that the antibiotic is not working on them, and then they will be like protected by some means, and you call it like antimicrobial resistance. So the bacteria is resistant to the antibiotic. It can be from different, can be in different ways. So for example, not only in the clinics, but also in agriculture. So for example, people use like many antibiotics as a growth promoter in agriculture or in poultry farms and things like that. And then these antibiotics are always in the environment, and let's say they dispose in the river or in the lake or
Mhm.
somewhere,
Yeah, yeah.
and then the you get infected. So the bacteria is always like constantly under the exposure of these antibiotics because we misuse them, too much use of the antibiotics, and then bacteria always try to evolve themselves against these antibiotics. um my work is like, I focus on like two interrelated questions in this field. So first, like how the bacteria evolve resistance against these antibiotics, and importantly, how that the evolution of resistance to antibiotics will influence bacterial response to our innate immunity. So because evolving resistance to antibiotics is definitely important for bacteria, but also bacteria needs to survive under our, a complex environment. We have so complicated environment in the body, and there are so many compounds that our body secretes to fight against the pathogens, right? So, so it's not only the antibiotic resistance, but also we need to understand that, okay, how the bacteria survive inside our body. So like two different things, but they're interconnected. This is what my research focus on currently. Um, and as you asked that how big the problem is, it's really huge problem. So for example, we know that bacterial pathogens have been a major cause of disease and mortality, right? And we have like long history of that. So And I think the problem is that whenever we find a new drug, um, we apply in clinical practice, then bacteria will evolve resistance. And the problem that it takes so long to put a drug in the market for therapeutic purpose, and the bacteria will resist so quickly. So it's really like a big problem. Um, and then there's a really good estimation actually to tell about how big the problem is. That there is estimation that if this antibiotic resistance problem goes like it's going now, then there will be a substantial health and economic burden, and that can be estimated globally. The annual cost of this antibiotic resistance could be millions of deaths and trillions of dollars by, let's say, 2050 or something like that. So it's really a big problem, and I think what we see now is like a tip of iceberg. It can be a really big problem in coming times if we don't control this problem. So yeah, I think it's really important to focus, and I think get aware that people should be aware of it, not only the doctors but also normal people, because if you look in South Asian countries, and like if you go to India, Pakistan, or some other country, let's say, I think antibiotics are used very frequently and blindly, I would say, because you can get without prescription, right?
Yes.
Um, so it means that people use it even though they use for like viral infections where the antibiotic has no role, right? They are not going to have any effect, but people use it. Doctor prescribe it sometimes. So yeah, people should know that what these are and when we should use them. So yeah,
So is the only antibiotic which gives the resistance to bacteria, or there are some other means they can get the resistance?
well, so there are like different things here. So for example, antibiotics, when you treat with the antibiotics, then they of course will evolve resistance. But there are some compounds like metals.
Oh.
So for example, people use metals in agriculture,
Mm-hmm.
and when metal also imposes stress on bacteria, on microorganisms, not only bacteria but also on other organisms. So metals also induce some kind of changes in bacteria, and that changes can also be responsible for antibiotic resistance. So you don't need to expose the bacteria to antibiotics. You just expose to metal and then check if bacteria is resistant to antibiotics or not, and you will see that yeah, they are resistant. So it's like there are different ways, you know. It's
Mm-hmm.
like pleiotropic effect, you can call them that. Yeah. So yeah, it's not only the antibiotics, but like there are like very nice studies showing that like different drugs, like let's say for diabetes or for cancer and things like that, they can also evolve resistance against antibiotics. So it's yeah,
That's
yeah,
really interesting, right? And it seems like a really huge problem, and especially in as you told us told me that it's a kind of huge problem in developing countries, right? Because there you don't have a kind of strict regulations to buy the antibiotics. So people
definitely,
use
yeah,
that, as you mentioned nicely, and you said that people can get antibiotic from anywhere, and they have the viral infection. They don't know it's just
yeah,
a cold, and they take the antibiotic. So if sometimes like they are not aware of these things, right? So
yeah.
I think it's really important to let people know that there is some phenomena which can give the resistance to the bacteria
That's
like
very
crazy,
true.
and then they can infect you just by taking the antibiotic, and they can get the resistance for that, and then you cannot treat them. They can.
Yeah, I mean, it's need more like kind of regulatory programs, I would say, in such countries where you don't have any control on prescription and the use of antibiotics. So it's really important to understand that okay, when and how much we need, right? So it shouldn't be like yeah, you use them blindly
Hmm.
and you don't know what the consequences will be in the future, right? So it's really important to understand these things. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious to know if, okay, bacteria got the resistance. So how you will come to know? what you how you're working in the lab to understand these mechanisms. So what kind of
Yeah,
science you do in the lab to get to know that okay, this phenomena is happening after the giving the antibiotic.
yeah. So I would say the classical way of studying the evolution of antibiotics in bacteria is doing laboratory evolution. So so basically, it's like you try to mimic natural evolution in the lab
Mm-hmm.
to see how bacteria evolve. So what you do, you take the bacteria, expose them to antibiotics, and you put a concentration which is not toxic in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Then bacteria will feel some stress. They will start, of course, definitely they will grow, and with the time, you increase the concentration or the doses of antibiotics, and then you expose the bacteria at the same time. So it's like gradually you increasing the concentration, and then bacteria is trying to, you train the bacteria that how to cope with this stress, and then bacteria will learn, do some changes,
Mm-hmm.
and then let's say it will do some changes in a way that the antibiotic is not going inside the bacterial cell. So it will stop the intake of the antibiotic, and then they will be safe, right?
Yes.
So, and then you do like once you finish this kind of laboratory evolution experiment,
Mm-hmm.
you can do the sequencing of the bacterial genome and then find out the mechanisms of resistance evolution, like finding the mutations in the DNA. That okay, what are the mutations? Which mechanisms are influenced by this mutation and how? And then you know and understand that okay, this is how the bacteria is evolving resistance against it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice. I mean, if you are kind of so you what you do is you give a kind of several doses of the antibiotic to the bacteria, and
Yeah.
then with the time course it get kind of evolution
Yeah.
evolved himself. What you say, bacteria evolved, so they are evolving himself to that particular concentration, and then they won't die with the antibiotic. So that kind of
Yeah.
a
It's like you're doing a passaging experiments, right?
yeah.
With the increasing concentration with the time. And yeah, at the end you will see like resistant bacteria on your plate or liquid or whatever,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really nice. And then I have a question in my head that what are the ways that we can treat this problem? I mean, we can get rid of with this problem if the bacteria if so many bacteria will get the antibiotic resistance, then it's going to be really huge problem as you mentioned before, right? So so of course there will be some solutions. So can you please tell us what are
Yeah,
the
that's really important thing actually. So there are some ways that can limit this problem. I mean, you can't stop the evolution, but you can just slow down it somehow. So I think, in my view, the first and the foremost important thing, the use of antibiotics. So people should know how to use them. So just try to avoid the misuse of antibiotics in agriculture or in clinical practice, right? So we need to understand and do some, like, as I said, do some kind of like um, awareness program that okay, people know that okay, yeah, I shouldn't go and just buy the antibiotic for something which is not going to help, right? Second thing I would say, we really need to understand the mechanisms, and I think we are still far from like thorough understanding of resistance mechanisms, how bacteria acquire resistance in clinical practice. And third, I would say we need to understand, is there any like barrier that can limit the spread of resistance in clinics or in environment. And if there are, and we know that there are some, then how we can exploit them. And I think altogether these things will direct the development of new drugs. And I think the more effective ways to use them so that we can avoid this like crisis that we have right now.
Mhm.
Yeah. So and definitely we need like more drugs. We need to develop and find new drugs. But yeah, at the same time, we need to understand this problem nicely. That okay, what's the main problem? How the bacterial resistance, and yeah.
Yeah, that's really
So
nice.
that,
I'm really interested to know more about the antibiotic resistance because I usually read the papers and they are
yeah,
really nice papers, yeah. And also I feel like there is a lack of awareness program as you mentioned before, especially in developing countries, right? So
yeah,
and availability of, I mean, the first thing is the lack of awareness. That's why people are going to buy antibiotic and they take for anything, right? And then second thing is availability. So it's really cheap and available. You
yeah,
go like 100 meters from your house and you ask the
yeah,
antibiotic, whatever you want, you get immediately, right? And that
yeah.
is not in
That's
the US,
true.
right? In here, you for buying the antibiotic, you have to go to the doctor. Doctor should prescribe you, and then you get that.
Yeah,
So
that's
probably the
very true.
availability is also there. And then the third thing is the price. The price of medicine is really cheap in India. I don't say that it should be high, but I say that there should be some regulations on the price as well to that people people can buy if they have the prescription from the doctor, and it's really important
Mm.
for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure about price, but definitely it's cheap. But I'm not sure how it will influence it. But I think the main thing, as you said, is the regulation. So it's like there should be some kind of rules and regulations on the use of antibiotics. So it shouldn't be like, okay, I need it for this purpose, even though I don't know if it will be working or not. But I want to use it because this is what I know from
Yeah.
my previous
True.
experience, right?
Mm.
So it shouldn't be like that. I think there should be some kind of rule regulations on the use and consumption of antibiotics, both in clinics and also in agriculture, because these are
Mhm.
like interconnected things. Whatever you use in agriculture, it will come to you, right?
Yes, true.
Because we are also exposed to the water and
Yeah.
then contaminate ourselves. And the same is true like pharmaceutical companies. So, for example, one more thing I would add, like dispose of the waste material
Mm-hmm,
is
mm-hmm,
also important. So, for example, in if you look in the clinics or in pharmaceutical industry, if you visit that area where there are more companies producing antibiotics, right, you will see like how they dispose of waste. They just put or let's say dump into a river,
mm-hmm.
or there are some kind of rules regulations they are following. So if they dump in the river, then what's gonna happen? That you contaminate the river, right?
Yes.
And then you will see after some years or months or I don't know, you will see some resistant bacteria, in the river. So it's really needs some kind of regulation,
Mm-hmm.
how you want to use it, how you want to I don't know, develop new antibiotics, and how you prescribe. And doctor should also know it. And yeah, so it's like it should be a team effort. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
the government should do it, only government side or doctor side or public side. It's like it's a team effort.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. I agree with all the points you said here. And yes, we both agree that it's a really really huge problem, and there there should be some strict regulations. Also, the politicians, the community, the social people programs should be there
yeah,
to give more awareness about it. Yeah. So Pramod, thank you so much for being here, and I'm really glad that you gave time to me, to our group, to and you share your really interesting research with us, and also I'm really I mean happy to discuss with you about these career things because it's really important.
yeah. Thanks for having me. Yeah,
Yeah, it was really nice to talk to you again. Thank you so much.
thanks, Virender. Yeah, take care.
You too. Bye bye.